That's small for next year. There's a lot of things. I'm just gonna let that go.
Is everyone ready? Everyone ready?
Page 42 starts with your calculations.
Are we ready?
Schedule.
Ready? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
The same day as
Good evening to all. I want to welcome you to the Planning Commission for the Town of Smithfield, Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. Would you all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on our agenda tonight would be Community Development and Planning Director's Report. Director Clary, please.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Just as an update, the agenda packets are now in a PDF portfolio format. This will allow each file to be accessed on the left side along with the corresponding bookmarks. We hope that this new format will make it easier for planning commissioners to review the agenda packet overall. Additionally, just as a follow-up, the spring newsletter is getting ready to go out, and we will be including our updated portable storage unit container ordinance, along with some additional information for our residents in that. And also with the help of Councilman Jeff Brooks, we were able to compile a list of 12 pod companies that we are currently reaching out to explain our new ordinance and the rules and regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Director.
Excellent.
Item number 2 on our agenda is upcoming meetings and activities. For Tuesday, March 21st, 6:30 p.m., the Board of Historical and Architectural Review meeting that will be held here at 6:30 p.m. Tuesday, March 21st, also the Board of Zoning Appeals meetings, which was canceled, pardon me. March 27th, Town Council meeting here at the center, and that is at 3 p.m. That is committee meeting. April 4th, 6:30 p.m., Town Council meeting held here at the center, 6:30 p.m. Item number 3 on our agenda is public comments. The public is invited to speak to the Planning Commission on any matters except scheduled public hearings. Please use the sign-up sheet if you have not. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Any required response from the town will be provided in writing following the meeting. Do we have anyone signed up? No. Being no one signed up, if you would like to speak, you may at this time. State your name and address for the record, please.
Bob Hines, 216 Washington. It's Pat Pierceville again, of course. All the work y'all did talking about the by right stuff to make the contractor ask for it. Well, I went to one of the meetings that he had, the 3 o'clock meeting at Main Street Baptist, and it sounds like it's going to pretty much come back to you. Well, it actually hasn't come to you, but it's going to come to you pretty much like what we've seen. 4-story building, Gray Street going straight into the development, and so on. So I'm of opinion that not y'all, but some people knew this going out and coming back, straightforward. And what I'm saying is actually not part of it, but the thing about what's going to be coming came out of Luder's mouth himself at the meeting, because I asked a direct question about the tall buildings. I also asked about the fact that another developer, he intends to sell the property for the houses to another developer. That was not ever mentioned before. Big letter in the paper and all that sort of thing. None of that was ever mentioned. And in a sense, what difference does it make who builds it, as long as it's done commensurate with what should be done? And that's not for us to decide. It's people like y'all. But just things to consider. It just seems like a little bit of smoke and mirrors to me and to many others, which quite honestly has led many people not to really trust the town council in the past. So hopefully when it comes to y'all, maybe there'll be some changes. One other little thing, if I heard right, Luder said that he needed elevators in the four-story building to make it economically feasible. Well, if the three-story buildings don't have elevators, I'm wondering what people would do, because that's going to eliminate, if he's not having them in there, would eliminate a lot of older people that might want to go in those apartments, townhouses, whatever you call them, or if somebody gets injured. I mean, I've been in a lot of two-story motels, and they have an elevator. So, anyway, I just thought I'd speak my piece, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Seeing none. Public comments. Session is closed. Item number 4, Planning Commission comments. Dr. Pope.
Yes, I'm having trouble reviewing a lot of these site plans and number 6 of our item agenda tonight. How can we make a transition between computers, PDF, electronics, and actual physical paper of being able to view a lot of these renderings and site plans and things like that on paper where you can actually write on them and review them? And for me, I read words, go back to the pictures, correlate it, and it's really difficult to do this in electronic format. And so I need to figure out, I don't need 651 pages printed for tonight's meeting, but I need to find some plan of how can we get the pictures, renderings, site plans for these projects that are coming up, because it makes it extremely difficult to read and flip and go back and forth in the computer. My computer crashed 5 times trying to read this document. So I'm trying to figure out how I can get pictures and images and how we relay information like that to you at the last minute to get these items to review.
I pretty much have the same problem. Mine was slow loading all of that material as well. But I found it, I downloaded it to an external hard drive. That sped it up a little. That did help a little bit. But Dr. DeClary, perhaps you got?
We can we can provide all printed copies, or if there's something in particular that you want where we could just do the overall site plan, not including all of the pages, or we can do all of the pages. We kind of will work with the planning commissioners. If you request any printed packages, we'll make sure that we have them available.
Well, it's one of those issues for me. I don't think I need words printed, but I need pictures printed. But I don't need, like our number 5 that's coming up on the agenda, I don't need every technical drawing on a water main, because I'm assuming our engineers, Mr. Reed, is taking care of that. But an image or two of what the planned project is, I don't know if I really need that. But when we're talking about elevations and site plans and parking and how things are going to look, it's much easier to follow that on a document than it is on a screen. So I don't know, because to be honest with you, I was out of town. I didn't get back till Sunday morning at 3 a.m., and I'm trying to look at this Sunday afternoon. So there's no way for me to communicate with you what I need printed prior to that, except to say I feel like I need pictures ahead of time.
So printed out elevations for new construction that would be located in the ECO to assist with your review.
I mean, yeah, I think that would be appropriate, yes.
And Ms. Clary, with his request, I know that we have some difficulty in printing this and getting it distributed. I have 2 monitors, it works for me. So when I'm at office, I obviously can't do it here. So I don't know if it's easier for you to say, hey, well, Dr. Pope would like it this way and Mr. Schwecker would like it a different way. I don't know if you want to do it for everybody or just for some of us, but if it's just for some of us, I'm okay with the way it is. But I understand, if I did not have 2 screens and they weren't large, I understand Dr. Pope's exactly.
Yeah, if you don't mind letting me know, just even via email or just after the meeting, letting me know your preference, I will certainly arrange that for all of you. Thank you.
Any other commission comments? No? Well, I'd like to comment on last February's meeting, we were given several applications to revise the town's planning ordinances, and it was requested that we do a robust discussion. With this new format of 8 members, after I read the minutes, I think we did that quite well last month. Pretty much everyone participated in the discussion, and I think not only I appreciate that, I think the town council appreciates that, and I think the citizens of Smithfield appreciate that. It shows the input we put into making the town safe, maintaining its health and well-being when we all participate. And it's transparency. The town understands more about what it is we're tasked and how we do it. So, again, I want to thank you all for the participations in last month's discussions. Tonight, we have several rather complicated applications, and I would hope we all could participate in a robust discussion on several of these tonight. And with that being said, there are 2 or 3 applications that's rather straightforward and I think would not take much time for us to process. If no one objects, I would like to change the order of the agenda and move the easier applications up forward so people who are not involved with the more complex ones won't have to sit here all night listening to something that does not really concern them. Would anyone oppose that?
I just have one comment, Mr. Chairman. I was not anticipating this, and I have been in touch with Derek Joyner and Nick Hess for number 7. And based on the comments, they said, well, we don't need to be there at 6:30. I told them I'd let them know after the first site plan was done and they can come then. So if you would like them to go earlier, perhaps I should text them now to come on.
They were number 3 on my list. I wanted to move them from, they were number 7? What's it?
Yes,
Yeah, they
sir.
were number 7. I wanted to move them to number 3. Well, not number 3, but.
To number
third.
5.
Yeah, the third application that we reviewed tonight. They were number 3 on my list.
I'll go ahead and tell them to come on now.
Okay. With no opposition to that, and there's no further planning commission comments. Planning commission comments? That agenda is closed. Moving on, I would like to discuss item number 8 next. That's the site plan amendment, Church Square entrance sign. That is Matt Glover, the applicant. Director Clary, could we have the report, please?
Yes, sir. I apologize. I'm just scrolling down.
And would you please, during the night, keep me addressed as to where we are, and so I don't miss anything?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that.
The applicant is seeking a site plan amendment for the installation of a subdivision entrance. This would be into Church Square. This is off of John Rolfe Drive. The monument sign would be located at the John Rolfe entrance with a white brick that's going to match the existing white brick entry sign off of South Church Street. It will be 24 square foot and feature a 4-foot sign. This will identify the development as Church Square. There will be a white vinyl fencing that will connect the 8 brick monument to a 6-foot white brick monument. The railings for the fencing will not exceed 8 feet in length. The sign will feature landscape uplighting at the base of the entry monument, highlighting the sign, and it will be mirrored on each side of the entrance. They have also included a landscaping plan for their detached sign. We do recommend approval under the following conditions: that the applicant provides a landscaping bond in the amount of $4,920, which is 120% of the landscaping cost estimate, and then a completed sign permit application along with the application fee prior to the issuance of a zoning permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant here tonight? Yes, sir. If you would like to speak, please give your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Matt Glover. I represent the Crescent Group and the Church Square community. Thank you, Tammy, for your report. I'm happy to answer any questions about our plan or what we're proposing.
Just give us a moment. It may take a moment for some commissioners to adjust to this new schedule here.
Well, I can see I agree with Tom on part of this.
Yes.
It's very difficult when you have large,
If you pinch your mouse pad,
yeah,
it does.
gotcha.
I have just one question on this. As far, I have no problems with your plans as presented. My question is one I often have is, do you have any type of watering or irrigation for this so that we can ensure that this goes forever and continues to look nice?
Yes, we do have irrigation supplied. Currently, we don't, it's not included within the irrigation drawings that we originally prepared for the site. But if conditioned, we can supply that. We will be installing it as soon, and we're trying to avoid installing it in the heart of summer.
Understood.
And what we are installing, doesn't need consistent water from what I've been told by my landscaper, but if that's conditioned, we can absolutely supply that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Does anyone need more time? No?
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that we approve as submitted.
Second.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Bryan, might we add to that, and now that we have a motion and a second, we can have some discussion with the recommendation that we add irrigation as a requirement to this landscaping as well?
Is that the motion? Who made the motion?
Well, I amend my motion.
Mr. Gibbs made the motion.
I amend my motion to add the irrigation to, as part of the process and approval.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second concerning this application with the conditions presented by the town staff and with the additional requirement that irrigation be included in the landscape plan. Call for the vote.
Dr. Pope,
Yes.
Mr. Pack,
Yes.
Mr. Davison,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbs,
Yes.
Mr. Yoko,
Yes.
Mr. Swecker,
Yes,
Vice Chair Hillegas. Yes. Chairman Bryan.
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The next item by my agenda is item number 9, the entrance corridor overlay. This is 1119 South Church Street, Town Bank, care of Michael Burdette, the applicant. Could we have the staff report, please, Director Clary?
Yes, thank you, sir. The applicant is seeking entrance corridor overlay review. This is to repaint the base of the sign in a warm gray color. The sign will feature the Town Bank name and crest on a blue background. The application and illustration follow this staff report. Just for additional information, the applicants are in the process of gathering the information and materials that are needed for a special sign exception application for a larger, more robust sign. Town staff do recommend approval. Thank you.
Yes, is the applicant here? Would you like to speak? Add anything to your application, please?
Happy to answer any questions that are needed.
Okay. And would you give your name and address, please?
Yes, sir. James Miller, 2109 Bingy Drive, Hampton, Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Again, if you would just bear with us.
Sure.
We can give the commission
Chairman.
time to look at it.
I would suggest that this is a very simple changing of names as a bank has changed ownership and moved to approve as presented.
Second.
I agree. We have a motion and a second. You may be seated, sir. Thank you. To approve this application with the conditions of town staff as presented. Call for the vote.
Mr. Yoko?
Yes.
Mr. Davison?
Yes.
Mr. Pack?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Dr. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Swecker?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hillegas? Yes. And Chairman Bryan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passed.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hess has arrived.
Yes.
Yes, sir, he just came in the room. Thank you for delaying that.
Okay. Then looking at the next item on our agenda, which is originally number 7. It's a planning commission waiver extension for 803 South Church Street, Red Point Tap House. Derek Joyner is the applicant, and I believe there's a Mr. Hess. Okay. Yes. Could you give us a director's report, please?
Yes.
Director Clary.
Thank you, sir. The applicants are seeking an extension for paving the parking lot with asphalt. In accordance with their approved phasing plan, they did indicate that they would pave the parking lot by June of 2022. This project last appeared before the Planning Commission at the Tuesday, July 13th, 2021 meeting. This was for a site plan amendment after the fact, entrance corridor overlay design review, an ECO waiver, and 2 special use permit requests. These requests were approved by the Planning Commission, and the SUPs were approved by Town Council. That would be on August 3rd of 2021. The special use permit granted a waiver of parking and loading requirements where the applicants sought relief from Article 8B, 6A, and B, which require entrances and parking areas to be constructed of an all-weather stabilized dust-free surface with curb, guttering, and drainage improvements. The applicants have provided a parking lot waiver extension narrative, which follows this staff report. Town staff do support this request for an extension and encourage the applicants to continue to maintain the condition and functionality of the gravel areas. They have been instructed that they must connect to town water and have indicated they are preparing a timeline for connection. Town staff respectfully requests that the Planning Commission table this application until the applicant provides us with a proposed timeline for that water connection. That was also required offer indicated that they would connect by the June 2022 deadline. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. You're asking this application to be tabled?
We are still waiting for Mr. Hess to provide us with a proposed timeline for connection. We are in support of the extension of the gravel parking lot. However, we do need to know the proposed timeline for the connection to the town water system. Thank you.
Well, I have one question. This is partly based upon the construction of the bike path along Church Street. That was mentioned in this application. Do we have a timeline? Or
We do not.
as a council member on the...
Yes, sir, we do not have a timeline.
We do not have a timeline?
Correct. We had hoped for funding in this last round of funding that would have probably still put it out 5 years. That funding has not been realized. There is no timeline at this point, to be 100% honest.
And that is one of my concerns. We're tabling it based upon the idea that that bike path is going to be constructed in a timely manner. We have been waiting on that bike path for how many years? And
20
how could
plus,
we
sir.
extend this application and table this application until when?
Well, I can tell you that their current gravel parking lot is highly functional. I was there Sunday, and it's in a good situation, and so I don't think we need to penalize them because the bike path is a situation. Their parking lot is highly functional. We have a lot of gravel parking lots, and it's working just fine.
To add to what Ms. Hillegas is saying, I know another restaurant in town that has a gravel parking lot and
I'm
has
familiar
for
with that one,
30-some
too.
years.
I was just there the other day, and it's
And-
highly functional as well.
And this planning commission also approved for the coffee, oh gosh, what's?
Coffee Cube.
Ian Brem's, yeah, the Coffee Cube to have a gravel parking lot.
The bagel shop. Was a bagel
Well,
shop.
and the bagel shop, yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, while Mr. Hess had the best of intentions when he brought this before us to improve the lot, he's taken on a building in town that was many things before and turned it into a thriving business that is an asset to our community. The parking lot works. It's in line with others in there. I would ask this planning commission to consider to removing the requirement to pave the parking lot. If we extend it, I imagine that at whatever date we extend it to, we see Mr. Hess here again, asking us to continue to extend it. I'd like to be business friendly and go ahead and knock this out tonight and say, Mr. Hess, you and your partners are no longer required to do your parking lot, to pave your parking lot.
Okay, with that being said, what about the connection to the town's water?
We have no say over that as a planning commission.
None?
No, sir, that is a director, as I understand it, that is a town manager's discretion. If Mr. Hess wanted to bring that, if he was unhappy with the town manager's answer, to bring that up, it would probably be most appropriate to do so to town council.
Attorney Pope, do you have any comments?
I think that Mr. Pack has summarized the procedure for that correctly.
All right, thank you. Any further comments?
To play devil's advocate, you present us something and say this is gonna be your overall plan, and now you're changing it midstream. I have a problem with that. The Coffee Cube also said they weren't using the lot as a parking lot, and there's often cars parked all the way back to the back property line as you ride by. They were simply using it as a cut-through, and I had concerns at that meeting that that whole lot would turn into a parking lot, and I was reassured that it would not, and there's been many times when I've gone by there to see multiple vehicles parked all the way through the grass to the back. So they are effectively using the whole lot as a parking lot. So that didn't work out in the favor of which we thought it might.
Do we approve that just to be a turnaround type thing? My recollection
It was
is,
presented to us as a turnaround because they had difficulty getting cars around the parking lot with the small nature of that. People might park on the edge of the gravel in order to not get stuck in the grass. But there was impervious concerns about how much coverage are you having on the lot if they did the whole thing. But
I thought we had approved a parking lot in the back of the Coffee Cube.
But if we have an ordinance that says that we prefer to have paved, hard surface areas, and we keep making exceptions, what difference does it make we have an ordinance? We've done it, as we mentioned, the bagel company for 4 parking spaces, 3 parking spaces, the Coffee Cube. There are areas, I mean, things are presented, this is what we're gonna do, and yes, it's expensive, I know it's expensive, but it's presented as such.
And what Dr. Pope has brought up here, is that an infraction against the town in the ordinance? Attorney Pope?
I think that with regard to the changes that are being made, I mean, certainly it would probably be a matter that I would take up with Mr. Riddick to be sure, but I think to table it for a period of time to illuminate those issues as far as what changes can be made once they've committed and what edits can be formally made, to do a revised proposal might be best. But I would like an opportunity to research the matter and maybe report back at the next meeting.
But in particular, the coffee shop parking situation that Dr. Pope mentioned, is that an infraction against the town?
We can go out and investigate and see what they've put out and how they're utilizing it. And we'd really have to say, I'm not sure exactly what they're doing out there in regards to the parking. So I can't really comment without seeing exactly what they've put out. But if they're utilizing, if they've put out more gravel than what was approved,
I don't think they put out more gravel than what was approved. They're just using their lot a very different way in which they said they would. I don't know. I don't know if it's a big deal or not, but we had concerns, I had concerns that they were gonna use the whole, well, that's a different issue. That's not for the agenda tonight.
I would certainly follow Ms. Clary's recommendation that some sort of investigation or information gathering be done to see if they have expanded the scope of what they originally sought approval for. And then once that happens, then the matter can be addressed if it is actually an infraction.
Thank you. Is there any further comment on this application?
I'd like to make a recommendation that we table this matter until Attorney Pope and Attorney Riddick can do the research and get back to us as far as paving and gravel and et cetera.
Something else we may want to consider is if the expense of all these hard surfaces, the other thing that comes with all these hard surfaces is that coverage and then your water pollution and your runoff and everything that comes along with it. Do we look at what we have in the code and in the requirements, that we look at impervious or pervious surfaces instead of impervious parking lots, that we can upgrade the parking lots to where they still typically a lot less expensive than going with a hard pack type of concrete or paving surface, but still allows the pervious and reduces the runoff and the pollution problems as well. So it may be an option that weighs, pro-business and doesn't cause them the expense of the parking lot, provides a more permanent solution for the parking issues, and doesn't have the runoff issues and water control issues that go along with an impervious surface as well. So,
Mr. Chair, there's a motion on the floor.
Yes, there is a motion. Is there a second? There is a motion to table this application. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion to table.
We have a motion to table this application until when? Any?
Well, until the attorneys can get back to us. Attorney Pope mentioned that they could have something back to us by the next meeting.
Okay.
Was that correct?
That was. I would like to just carry it over to the next meeting so that we can either, do we amend it? Do we do something different? If some of these projects are going to, the bike path and the other things that were mentioned are going to make this an impossibility for a long period of time, or just a general question mark out there, should there be a longer term fix other than just tabling it and continuing it? But I would ultimately consult with Mr. Riddick on that, since he is the resident expert, and have an answer for you at the next meeting, I think would be appropriate.
Yeah.
Would that be terribly inconvenient?
I mean, just to come back, I mean, as Mr. Yoko said, the county wants everything impervious, but you guys want pervious. So what do so if I go pervious, then I got to pay for nutrient credits. They're $12,500 a pound. If I cover more than 2,500 square feet in a calendar year, which that's 5,000 square feet, so there's another 25,000 on top. And then if I pave the lot, where's all that water going to go? There's no stormwater management on South Church Street, so I'm going to dump all that water, out on the South Church Street. So it's a pervious parking lot. It's millings. Everyone's there. There's no issues. I would like just to move forward with it, not having to pave it ever, to be honest.
That building's been dead for how long? They come along, they turn it into a thriving business. I think it exceeded what they thought it was gonna do. I don't see why we have to push the issue of the asphalt. Leave it as is. We all complain about we don't have the businesses in town. They proved it works.
Point well made.
Mr. Chairman, we have a motion, it's been second. Are we talking about unreadiness now, or where are we at?
You want to continue with that motion?
Well, we have to have a vote on the motion.
Yes.
We do.
We do, yes, sir.
Okay.
I think from a legal standpoint, you know, we have these attorneys, we pay these attorneys for their advice. She feels more comfortable of taking another month and talking to Mr. Riddick. To me, I think we should table it, and so my motion stands.
Okay.
If town staff could just add, because this was tied to their special use permit, we would like to consult with Mr. Riddick on the appropriate process on how to achieve kind of no longer paving, just to clarify with him exactly what needs to be done.
That's an interesting point too, Ms. Clary, because one of our topics of conversation tonight is changing of proffers. And while this isn't a proffer
Right.
by any stretch, it does kind of fall into that realm of
Yeah.
what can we change and what can we not. It is likely appropriate to table this and at least get a ruling.
More
And
information can't hurt.
It cannot hurt.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I just want to make sure that there's not some kind of ripple effect that this causes, that Ms. Clary points out, that if we make the change, that's going to be clean and satisfy all of the elements that need to be met all the way through, so that there's not a something that needs to be revised or redone later because of what changes we've made, because there are statutes that are applicable.
Well, I've got a question. I don't know if we have to vote, move on, and wait till next month, but, sorry. Item number 6 on our agenda has gone through an extensive site plan evaluation. Why would an application such as this not have to present BMPs and runoffs and all the other things that go into a site plan?
Because of the magnitude of the application.
In what way? What do you mean?
Well, the magnitude of,
So,
I
the
understand what
size
you're
of the
saying,
project.
but we have, I can't remember all of the details over the years that we've worked on this, but there has been a great number of exceptions to this lot, including setbacks and things of that nature. There's been a lot of exceptions. And so, we have a plan.
so that the paving aspect was part of the original site plan that was presented, that did come through Planning Commission for their review and approval. And I do believe there were additional nutrient credits that had to be purchased years ago with the project.
Not through us.
No, okay.
The original, as Mr. Pack said about the proffer, Mr. Settle said, in order to get this pushed through, a good idea would be on our proffer for the paving. That was, from Mr. Settle. So that's where we went through with it. But as we put the millings down, doesn't add or take away anything from the business paving it, just adds a burden to a small business that is providing a good amount of revenue to the town.
Right, and these were two promised items that were associated with the application when they did come before Planning Commission for their rezoning and their special use permit items.
Any further Planning Commission discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second to table this application as the town staff and attorneys gather more information and input, probably including the applicant as well. Call for the vote. Director Clary.
Mr. Pack?
Yes.
Dr. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Swecker?
Yes,
Mr. Yoko?
Yes.
Mr. Davison?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hilligas?
yes.
And Chairman Bryan.
Yes.
Thank you.
The application's been tabled. Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks.
Now, back to originally scheduled. Item number 5 on our agenda is a site plan, 16-inch water main, Mallory Point subdivision. Kenneth Turner is the applicant. Could we have the staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, sir. The applicant is seeking site plan approval for a 16-inch water main for the Mallory Point subdivision. The long-term plan is for this new 16-inch water main to replace the existing 8-inch water main that is currently located on Battery Park Road. This runs from Wellington Estates to the water tank. Once the 16-inch water main has replaced the 8-inch water main, it will service the homes on Battery Park Road as well as the Mallory Point subdivision. In order to properly install this water main, a small portion will be located under the bike pedestrian path. This is required in order to keep construction off of Battery Park Road. The proposed construction will then bore underneath Battery Park Road and connect to the water tank off Denson Bailey Court. Town staff do recommend approval, provided that the applicant obtains a zoning permit, right-of-way permit, and supporting construction bond. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant present?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
Ken Turner, 505 Roland Drive, Norfolk, Virginia. When I saw the packet for this meeting that I received from Ms. Clary, I went through it and I put together a brief PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to go through in a few minutes and highlight the main aspects of this application to help clarify exactly what we're proposing and what improvements we're going to make for the town out here. So with that, I'd like to proceed with the PowerPoint. I just went through the application and picked out a few of the slides that were relevant that I can explain exactly what we're doing to help cut to the chase of the 243 pages that were included. Next slide.
Are you aware?
You have the.
Oh, okay.
Next is Dr. Pope.
This is the cover sheet for the plans. What I've done here is I have included the plan sheet for the improvements that shows the new entrance to Phase 1 of Mallory Point directly across from Stratford Lane, the entrance to Wellington Estates. As indicated in the staff report, we're going to jack and bore under the Battery Park Road, and we're going to extend that casing pipe to a point beyond the future widening of Battery Park Road for the entrance into Mallory Point. So the lane configuration that we have shown for the entrance to Phase 1 is going to be installed in conjunction with the Phase 1 improvements. This is just for approval of the water main and the signal intersection that were proffers with the prior approval that was received for this project. The water main in Phase 1 of this development will connect to the 16-inch line, and it will extend across Battery Park Road to the south side of Battery Park Road, and then extend to the east in the existing right-of-way and avoid existing utilities, and be installed parallel to the existing 8-inch. The existing 8-inch line will have to remain in service until this is installed, constructed, pressure tested, disinfected, and connected. So the 8-inch line will be in service while this is being constructed. This is a continuation of the plans. It shows the 16-inch water line on the south side of the road, and about 300 feet of the alignment are going to be located under the multi-use path. The original design that I submitted had the water main out in the road, but the town staff was uncomfortable having the utility in the roadway, and they requested that we put it in the right-of-way, and the multi-use path was the only location where there were not existing utilities in the way of this alignment. To the right of the sheet there, we're going to jack and bore under Battery Park Road again to get to the north side of the road, which is where the elevated storage tank is located on that side of the road. Then we're going to continue on the north side of the road for a couple hundred more feet until we get to the entrance of the elevated storage tank. We'll make the connections to the elevated storage tank, and we will then transfer all the services from the existing 8-inch line to the 16-inch line, and then we will abandon the 8-inch line in place. So those are the essential components of the water main extension. And then I also included a couple plan sheets from the application which show the improvements to the intersection of Main Street and Battery Park Road. in conjunction with the additional traffic associated with it, one of the proffers was to make improvements to this intersection, and that entails replacing some of the signal heads at the existing intersection and reprogramming the controller to redirect the traffic flow through that intersection to handle the changes in the traffic that will be experienced going through that intersection. We submitted this through VDOT. We work with Josh Norris, the Hampton Roads District Office Traffic Engineers, and we have done a structural analysis of the existing mast arms to look at the wind loading associated with the change in the configuration of the signal heads. That was approved by VDOT and Josh Norris, as well as the city transportation engineer. And there will be no changes to the mast arms themselves. There will be no construction in the roadway. The only improvements that are going to be made is to change the signal heads and to reprogram the controller at this intersection. So there will not be any physical land disturbance at this intersection. And this just shows the existing and the proposed mast arms. That was just another detail that I pulled from the plans that I'm not sure it means a whole lot to anybody here, but I just wanted to show that to indicate that all we're doing is changing the signal heads on the existing mast arms and then reprogramming the controller. And that's all I have to present, help clarify what this application is for. I'll be glad to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Now, the slides you presented, they're the same slides that's in the application.
That's correct. And when I got the package, there were 243 pages, and I similarly went through that, and I said to myself, let me just highlight a few of the things that are in there that will help clearly explain the nature of the work that we're doing, which is required by the proffers before in conjunction with phase one of this development. So there's no new information here. I just wanted to clarify and explain it a little bit better.
And would you explain again the exact location of the 16-inch water main? It's not going to be under the road. It's not going to be on the Battery Park pavement. It is going to be in the back path?
At the entrance to the proposed phase one, we're going to jack and bore under Battery Park Road, and then we're going to extend the line from the north side of the road to the south side of the road. The road won't be open cut. We're going to bore a casing under there and then thread the pipe through it. Then the pipe will extend on the south side of the right-of-way along Battery Park Road in between the ditch and the edge of the right-of-way line. There's a gas line that's just off the edge of the pavement. There's fiber optic lines, there's telephone lines, and there's other existing utilities. So we found a corridor that was wide enough to install the 16-inch water main in the existing grassed right-of-way, not within the pavement. So this alignment here shows the pipe on the south side of the road between the edge of the right-of-way and the edge of the pavement. So that's on the first plan sheet. Then the second plan sheet, the pipe continues along the south side of the road, and it's under the multi-use path for about 300 feet there before it crosses over to the other side of the road. And then on the other side of the road, it will be in the right-of-way as well, between the edge of the right-of-way and the existing ditch until it makes a connection with the line coming out of the elevated storage tank.
So there's be minimum removal of the pavement itself, Battery Park pavement.
There will be no removement of Battery Park pavement, just the asphalt under the multi-use path. Both of the crossings of Battery Park Road will be done with trenchless technology. We'll jack and bore a 30-inch steel casing under there, and then we'll slide the 16-inch pipe through that casing. There may be temporary impacts to the traffic along Battery Park Road when construction is going on for access of delivery of material, removal of excavation spoils, and just for staging during construction during the day. And those details are included in the maintenance of traffic plan that's in your packet. I didn't want to get into that level of detail. That was also approved by VDOT and the city engineer, or the town engineer.
About how many feet are you gonna be from the road over into the yard?
So we have two crossings of Battery Park Road, and we are not gonna open cut the road at all. The pipe will be under Battery Park Road for approximately 150 feet. The area where we'll be under the multi-use path will be on the area to the right that's shown on this exhibit here. I believe it's approximately 300 feet. And when we originally came up with a design, I wanted to avoid the impacts of the multi-use path, so the original submittal had the pipe going out in Battery Park Road, which would have been a more expensive alternative for the owner, but it would have allowed continued use of the multi-use path by the residents out there. But the town commented that they didn't want their pipe out in the paved access for future maintenance. If they had to do anything, they'd prefer for it to be out of Battery Park Road and in the area between the ditch and the right-of-way line.
Mr. Turner?
Yeah.
I understand the water here. Is it appropriate while you're disturbing this area to do the sewer as well? I believe there's a similar sewer line planned in this approximate location.
The sewer improvements associated with Phase 1 are going to be in Phase 1. There's an existing force main that's out there, and one of the conditions of Phase 1 approval for the site plan was to do an analysis of the existing 12-inch sewer line and to determine when that would have to be increased in size from 12 to 16. I've submitted that modeling and report to the town, and the town is currently reviewing that.
Your report does not require any additional sewer line for Phase 1 then? Is that?
No additional sewer line for town sewer in Phase 1.
Answers my question, thank you.
Yes.
Not being, sorry, not
Go ahead, Dr.
being,
Pope.
not being somebody who does this for a living, if you're gonna have to upgrade the sewer line at some point, would it not be economically to your advantage to put it in at the same time you're doing this?
This was a decision that was made by the developer, and he wanted to meet the conditions of the proffers associated with Phase 1 and minimize his upfront capital expenditures until he could get some of the houses built and get some revenue going. So the extension, the upsizing of the sewer, I believe, is over on the other side of Battery Park Road. Is that right, Jack? This is a 16-inch here?
The sewer line on Battery Park Road is already 16, and that's why it doesn't need to be upgraded at this point.
When you cross Battery Park Road and get over into the Crescent neighborhood, that's where the 12-inch existing sewer force main will have to be replaced, so it's not in the same footprint or proximity of this existing water line, or water main. So that extension will occur in the Crescent neighborhood, parallel to Old Stage Road, but not in the same footprint.
What kind of timeline are we looking at? Once you start this installation of the pipe, what kind of timeline are we looking at from start to finish?
There will be a lot of time required once this is approved for the contractor to procure the material. The procurement time for this pipe is 6 to 9 months out currently, so if he placed an order today, he wouldn't get it for 6 months. I don't know.
Before you start the actual construction?
Before he gets the pipe delivered. And then at that point, construction can begin. So we're at least, I would say, 6 months out before we see any construction out there.
And from 6 months to installing this portion of the pipe?
I'd say about 4 to 5 months.
About 4 to 5 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
Depending on the weather. And there are going to be lane restrictions for when they can work in Battery Park Road. So it's not like they can go out there and work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Mr. Turner, you mentioned the future widening of Battery Park Road. Do you have any inside information on that?
It's just at the entrance to Phase 1 of Mallory Farm, and the lane configurations that I showed here is what is included in the site plan that's currently under review by the town, and that work will not be done until Phase 1 is approved and construction starts on that. So you may see earth moving and other activities out there before this intersection upgrade is completed, but we did take into consideration the future intersection footprint and made sure that we extended the water main beyond the limits of the future roadway for the turn lane for the entrance to Mallory Point off of Battery Park Road. So it's just to localize just this verge area in the intersection where you have to have the turn lane into Mallory Farm from both directions on Battery Park Road.
So this widening, road widening, is a different phase, a different time period.
That's correct. That's for a site plan that's currently being reviewed by the town currently. And we're meeting with them this Thursday to go over some questions and comments they have, and hopefully we can get that resubmitted quickly and potentially be in front of you next month with approval of that. If not, then hopefully by May of this year.
All right, you know Battery Park is, several cars go down that road every day for their employment, Newport News or wherever. Why couldn't you get the road approved first before you start running the main over?
The water main extension and the signal improvements were proffers associated with the original zoning that had to be constructed in conjunction with Phase 1. So that was a condition that was placed on this project by a prior zoning approval.
What widening are you speaking of?
They're gonna widen, supposedly they're gonna widen the road, Battery Park?
Just this intersection right here.
Just the intersection.
Who's gonna widen it? VDOT?
No, just this intersection.
I think he's talking about the whole
The
Battery
whole
Park
Battery
Road.
Park.
Oh,
That will be determined by VDOT once the need of traffic is present.
But we certainly got the need now.
Exactly.
I'm not aware of those plans. It's in the 6-year plan.
Well, the traffic signals, questions, I'm looking for some additional clarity here. The traffic signals that you're going to change at Church and Battery Park, how is that supposed to, help? Changing that traffic there from that intersection, I'm trying to understand that.
There are two things that are being done there in conjunction with this project. With the addition of the additional traffic there, we did an analysis of the intersection to determine how many origins and destinations there would be, and that resulted in the need to change the timing of the controller there. And then the new signal heads that VDOT used, I think some of you have seen them, they have a flashing yellow light for left turns. VDOT wanted to use this project to introduce a new signal head that they wanted to try out. So the green light will also have a flashing yellow or amber within the green light. So the signal heads that you will see out here will be new. They won't be like any others that you've seen in the town or out in the district with VDOT.
So this signal change is not temporary for this water main. This is a permanent change.
Correct, and that was the second proffer associated with the prior zoning approval that needed to be addressed in conjunction with this development. So we wanted to do the water main work and the intersection improvements up front, independent of the site plan improvement for Phase 1.
Mr. Bryan, what we have before us this evening is a project that we approved last year some time ago. And part of that had several proffers with it. These two items before us are proffered items before they can begin construction. One is to get enough water to the property so they can properly plumb the homes. And the second was to begin the traffic study. The traffic study had, in the neighborhood of 15 different improvements along Battery Park Road from here at Battery Park and South Church Street all the way out to 17. What we have in front of us tonight is two of these proffers, conditions that they would like to go ahead and begin so that they can begin construction on their project, barring site plan approval here in the short future, in the relatively near future. So we've got these in front of us. They have, Mr. Reed and the town has reviewed them and is in agreement with them, and staff is recommending approval of both of these tonight. And they're going to use normal construction methods to do this. There's nothing unusual here. With that being said, I would move that we approve this application as presented. There's nothing unusual in here.
Second.
We have a motion and to approve this application as presented with the conditions set by town staff. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Pack?
Yes.
Dr. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Swecker?
Yes.
Mr. Yoko?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hilligas?
Yes.
And Chair Ben Bryan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Application passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Do I need to do anything with this, or are you going to take control of it?
I can shut it down. Thank you.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is a site plan and entrance corridor overlay. This is 1305 South Church Street, DMV, in care of KLS Battery Park, care of Warren Sachs, the applicant. Could we have the report, please?
Yes, thank you, sir. At the Tuesday, October 4th, 2022 meeting, Town Council conditionally approved a special use permit for a waiver of parking and loading requirements. This would be for the proposed 4,800 square foot building with the proposed use of a DMV office. And this was to allow a maximum of 108 parking spaces contingent on final site plan approval. The applicant is now seeking site plan approval for two separate buildings on Lot 511C. This is on South Church Street. It would be 1305 and 1403 South Church Street. The applicant is proposing the 4,800 square foot building for the proposed use of the DMV office, featuring a 50-foot by 125-foot, 6,250 square foot motorcycle training area, and the adjacent 7,200 square foot mixed-use building. There are two proposed uses, a 4,800 square foot restaurant and a 2,400 square foot retail space. As part of this site plan approval, there are 213 parking spaces proposed. This includes 6 standard handicap spaces, 4 van accessible handicap spaces, plus 2 loading spaces. The parking area will feature 17 direct arm mounted parking lights. Based on the approved master plan for the Royal Farms, the applicant will install a pork chop at the entrance north of the Dollar General and south of the Royal Farm parcels. This will limit entering and exiting traffic to a right in, right out, and the applicants are also potentially discussing with VDOT for a potential left in off of South Church Street as well. Final design of the pork chop and traffic movements will be determined and approved by VDOT. The applicant has also provided a landscaping plan in accordance with Article 9 and Article 3R. This will feature 44 crepe myrtle trees, 14 Virginia pine trees. The sides will feature a 10-foot landscaping buffer with required street trees. The front and the rear of the parcel will feature a 10-foot transitional buffer featuring dwarf Burford holly, 194 of them. This will create a 4-foot hedge in accordance with the zoning ordinance. As part of this same application package, the applicant is also seeking entrance corridor overlay review and approval for this project. The DMV office will feature biscuit blue shingles, wrapped aluminum trim in metal, white featured aluminum gutters. There will be 3 different types of materials on the proposed building. The top portion will feature a vinyl board and batten siding in a white color. The middle section will feature an Everlast composite siding in gray. This is seaside gray. And the lower sections of the building will feature a gray concrete masonry units. The front will have 16 picture windows. These will be divided into 4 sections with 4 windows each. There will also be a double entry powder-coated aluminum door. This will be the main entrance to the DMV office. Moving on to the second building, the proposed mixed-use restaurant retail building. This is will feature a combination of aluminum metal coppings on the edge of the parapet walls, an external insulated finish systems, EIFS, masonry brickwork, stone veneer, and metal and acrylic woven fabric awnings. all the fronts of the building. It's this combination of this EIFS and brickwork. The EIFS will be painted in a white color, and it will also feature a band painted in a web gray color. The lower portions of the elevations, this is a Pro-Fit Alpine Ledge stone in an earth tone color known as Echo Ridge. It will also have a gray colored stone water table ledge that separates the EIFS from the stone veneer. The primary entryways into the two units will feature red face brick with metal awnings painted in a tricorn black color. These are mounted to the recessed EIFS painted in a white color, which is a highly reflective white. There will also be a metal awning over the entry door and acrylic woven fabric awning over the 3 windows. The rear of the building, there will be 2 exit doors with 3 exterior lights and 4 scupper and downspout gutters to allow stormwater runoff from the roof. In addition to the EIFS, the white EIFS and the gray band, the left side will have face brick with a metal awning also painted in the tricorn black. This will only be installed if the applicant applies for and successfully acquires a special use permit for a potential drive-through facility. At this time, the applicant is not looking, has not submitted an application, is not looking to install a drive-through, but these elevations were reflective of an earlier version of the application that did have that. The applicants are aware that if they do want to pursue the drive-through, a special use permit is required. The site plan also includes a 6-foot-tall dumpster enclosure constructed of Trex composite decking boards. This is in a medium gray color. It will feature 2 gates with galvanized steel. The development will feature 2 detached signs, one for the DMV office building and the other for the restaurant and retail building. Town staff have reviewed the site plan for all applicable components of the zoning ordinance and design standards and determined the site plan to be in conformance. This application has also been reviewed and approved by the Smithfield Fire Department, Police Department, and the Department of Public Works and Utilities. Town staff do recommend approval of this site plan, and ECO review are contingent on the following. At the drafting of this staff report, any comments generated by Isle of Wight County must be addressed. If the building requires any sort of fire suppression sprinkler system, the applicant must provide an additional dedicated fire hydrant within the required number of feet of the FDC connection. This was a comment received from the Smithfield Fire Department. Approvals should be contingent on final VDOT approval of the proposed pork chop at the entrance to Royal Farms, restricting that left turn movement onto South Church Street, and approving the full access entrance to the DMV office opposing Mercer. Any additional comments received from the VDOT or the town consultants on the TIA shall be resolved and corrected prior to permitting. Staff must be provided with a landscaping bond in the amount of 120% of the proposed landscaping cost estimate. A zoning permit application along with the requisite fee will be required, and Public Works and Utilities will require a utility bond for the proposed infrastructure that will be transferred to the town. They will require a full cost estimate in order to calculate the bond amount, and this will cover the infrastructure and utilities located within the town's easement. And when the applicant is ready to proceed with the detached sign, a sign application and fee payment will be required, provided that any proposed signage or exterior changes must be reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission if applicable. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Is the applicant here?
Good evening, Commissioners. Chair Bryan, thank you for your
Yes.
time. My name is Brad Martin. I am with WPL. Our business address is 242 Mustang Trail in Virginia Beach. I'm the civil engineer on the job with the owner and developer, Dr. Warren Sachs.
My name is Dr. Warren Sachs, and I live in Virginia Beach, and we have worked with the staff almost 2 years to bring this project to fruition, and we hope we have got a plan that meets all the criteria that the staff has asked us to meet. And we're here to answer any questions that you have.
I want to first thank your staff. I don't have to tell you all how good Tammy Clary and specifically Jack Reed are at what they do, working through projects like this and processes like this. You all are familiar with this property, I'm sure. It's the vacant parcel between the True Value Hardware Store and the Family Dollar and the Royal Farms right there on South Church Street. It only goes as deep as about the Family Dollar, the Dollar General. It's not the vacant residential property behind that I know you're familiar with as well. This is a project that's been a long time in the making from Dr. Sachs's and his partners' original conversations with the DMV to come to this location, to come to this town, and then how this project and the layout and everything finally came to fruition. So we think this is a responsible project. We think it's a good project for the corridor. We think it meets all of your requirements in the corridor overlay and the different regulations we've had to meet as far as landscaping, stormwater, everything we've heard. We're not here asking for a gravel parking lot or anything like that. We don't want to test motorcycles on a gravel parking lot. But we think this is a responsible project. We're certainly happy to answer any questions you might have and hope for your approval tonight.
Thank you. Commission. Planning Commission? You have questions for the applicant? Comments? Well, I will start. This application was presented to us before to get some comments. And one of the things I understood in that first presentation was that the restaurant would be somewhat upscale and there was no desire to seat a drive-through. Is that changing?
I can't hear him. What did he say?
He said that the idea of the restaurant was to be somewhat upscale and there was no intent for a drive-through.
That's correct. There's no intent for a drive-through. Speaking with the staff, it makes me smile. Who we would like to have only on the site would be Chick-fil-A. Now, whether we can make that happen, we don't know. We don't have a tenant for the restaurant. We are talking to some people. The problem that we have with the retail site is the first question everybody asks is, when are you going to be finished? And we can't tell them we're going to be finished until we get past this meeting tonight. So if we have finished the maximum square footage of the restaurant, which is a fairly good-sized restaurant, would be 3,000 square feet. That would be our goal, is to have a restaurant, and then we tend to rent to people that are Amazon-proof. What that means is that you have a retail tenant that provides a service. Services are like a nail salon, a hair salon, a barber shop, shoe repair, cell phone store repair, things that don't compete directly with Amazon, because in this marketplace, if you notice, in shopping centers and strip shopping centers, the people that are going out of business are the mom and pop stores that don't have the website ability to compete with Amazon. So we are going to look for Amazon-proof tenants. Do we have anybody today? No. But we know we're going to have 7,200 approximately square feet to build on, but we would hope that once the DMV starts, people will say, oh, you're finally going to start. I can see an end to the project. We'll talk to you about a lease. And that's basically where we are.
Well, I have a couple of concerns about this project. This is becoming quite a dense area here being built here. We have a development approved Battery Park East directly behind this site. That is going to be dense. It's going to be residential. It's going to have a lot of residents living there. And then your proximity to your neighbors. Royal Farm, the Dollar General, and True Value on the other side. The motorcycle training area, what kind of noise is that going to provide? And that's going to be something that the neighbors will want to tolerate.
That's a great question, and it is going to be a DMV office where obviously you go to get your driver's license, you go to do what you need to do at that. The motorcycle training area is not going to be something, if you have been by any of the new DMV offices lately, they now have this pad out there that is always out there and it's almost never used, quite frankly. It is not going to be something where they're doing training out there. This is where somebody who has already done their training somewhere else at one of the community college or another course that they've done somewhere else comes and says, I just need to do the 15-minute figure eights around to have somebody watch me to be certified for my license. It's not going to be a training facility. It's not going to be anything that's going to be starting up at 8 a.m. on Saturdays or anything like that. It's just going to be where somebody who has already done their training somewhere else comes to the DMV and gets tested for that 10 or 15 minutes by the DMV personnel to then get the certification for their motorcycle license. So it's something that literally is used once or twice a day for a little spin around to watch somebody who's a new motorcycle driver and certify them in their new motorcycle licensure.
What is the nearest DMV office that has a similar motorcycle facility?
The nearest one, I'm not sure. There is one at
Williamsburg.
or the one at Obacy Hospital.
Yeah.
There's one right off the street right across the street from Obacy Hospital in Suffolk. And I was actually the civil engineer on that one as well. And that's one of the reasons I'm familiar with it. It's an asphalt pad that sits out behind the building, and for all intents and purposes, it could just be a vacant parking lot. But they need that where there aren't going to be cars parked, so that they have that area to be able to put someone through the test before they get their motorcycle license.
So as you know, there's none in Newport News or Hampton
Williamsburg.
and Williamsburg. That's the closest that you're aware of. The other question I have is the buildings, these two buildings, even though they're on the same site, the designs are quite different. Why could they not be the same?
We tried to give some architectural differences in the buildings so they didn't look the same. They are different. We designed them to be different so people wouldn't confuse the two and go to the wrong building. And this is a different building, this is a whiter building, this is a different thing for the restaurant. They are different just because we think marketing-wise that's going to be the best thing to do. And we submitted the plans very early and asked for any architectural feedback on the buildings and plans, and everybody accepted the drawings that we submitted. And we think we designed a thoughtful, architecturally pleasing product, and that's what we did.
Any other commissioners, comments, questions?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Pat?
We have two things in front of us tonight. We have a site plan review and an ECO review, and they're almost very different in my opinion. As far as the site plan is laid out, I really have no issues. With the ECO, and Ms. Clary, if you'll correct me, in the ECOs, this is where it's appropriate to comment on the architecture of the building and the finishes on the building?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's where I run into. This planning commission has worked very hard to encourage brick buildings. We have a very attractive Royal Farms gas station on the corner. We have a Dollar General next to it that is an upgraded Dollar General, if there is such a thing, but it has brick around it. These buildings do not reflect the architecture of the entrance corridor overlay district, in my opinion. I find the DMV buildings architecture and finishes on the outside to be more in line with perhaps a beach or coastal neighborhood. I've never been a fan of the masonry on the bottom that looks like a roughed up cinder block. And I find that the buildings, the retail and restaurant buildings, to be very commonplace. I think our community deserves a little better than commonplace. We have buildings with flat walls, and in the way that the size of these buildings are broken up is with a few awnings. Otherwise, it's pretty much a stamped building. No problem with the landscaping plan. I'm fine with that. That meets our requirements. But I would like to see the buildings with a better exterior finish that is more in line with the neighboring buildings and what fits our town and what our town can be. If you look across the street, you have residences. And those residences are a mixture of commercial offices that have turned into, from homes into commercial offices. And this is a part of our town that in our comprehensive plan shows some major changes, some walkability. The town council just finished up a 10-year plan of what they want it to look like. And this looks pretty plain to me. This looks pretty normal, which you may find in any other city in Hampton Roads. And I would encourage this planning commission and the applicants as well to take these comments as they're meant, because I have no problem with what you guys are doing and what you have there. I would like the appearance of them to be more in line with the architecture of our community.
Do you want to make a comment? We tried it we submitted the plan 6 different times with the plans, and nobody made any comment about the building that said we should change it. One comment came back when we first submitted the plan that they wanted to, that the DMV said that they wanted to have a brick skirt around the building, which we have. This plan mirrors the DMV location in Virginia Beach. It's a very, very, very similar design to that location. We tried to break up the architectural drawings between the two to set them apart a little bit. We didn't want this building, if you look at it, it's a low building. The Rural Farms and the Dollar General next door are much taller buildings. And if you build a low building that's all brick, you look like you're building a bunker. And we're trying to give it some architectural pizzazz. That's why we have the different materials. We have brick, we have siding, we have a shingled roof. We toured with the idea to build a pitched roof over the entire thing, and we figured it would look like a big upside down jumping jack box. So if you look at the roof doesn't go up to a point, it goes to a flat part. That was designed to give it a very good architectural thing. We put a lot of time and effort into designing this building, and I'm sure that if you had 25 people, you would have 27 different ideas on what it should look like. But we tried to do it the way we had to deal with the DMV, the way the DMV wanted the project to look. We had originally proposed that we would have a more architecturally designed window in it with panes in it, and DMV said absolutely not. You have to go to a storefront window. So we're dealing with a lot of moving variables, and we tried to satisfy everybody going into this and coming up with different plans that worked well and gave it some architectural thing. If we build a brick building here and a brick building back, it's a row of brick buildings. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to break it up and do it. Now, if we had a lot more height in the buildings, it would make a big difference, but that's not what these particular buildings call for. We're not as high as the Dollar General, and we're not as high as the Rural Farms. And we thought we put a lot of effort and work into this to come up with an architectural drawing that was pleasing.
Yes, sir. You mentioned 2 things specifically I want to comment. First, you said you submitted these drawings 6 times, and I've been on this planning commission 10 years. This is the first I recognize of seeing any conceptual drawings of the buildings. So if we failed to give you appropriate comment on that, my apologies. The second part is you said the DMV mimics very closely Virginia Beach. And all you did there is make my point a little bit stronger, sir. We are not Virginia Beach. We're a colonial town. And this looks like something that fits at Virginia Beach. I like the style. However, I don't believe it to be appropriate for the town of Smithfield. And I understand that you're working with a lot of constraints. I understand DMV, and I'm doing some work with the state myself. They are not the easiest clients to communicate with, and they are not quite as timely as we are in the public world. And I wish you the best in dealing with those guys, because they are difficult at times. But my job on this planning commission is to ensure the integrity of our town and the appearance of our town. And these two particular buildings do not enhance what we have. And it is of my opinion, and my one of 8 votes, that I'm not going to vote for something that I do not believe fits the architectural nature and the aspect with which our town it needs to see. Again, I have no problem with the site plan. I have no issue with that. And I don't know if it allows you to move forward with your site plan, your site work tonight by approving the site plan and tabling the ECO until if you wish to change it or if you wish to have a vote on that, that's certainly your imperative. I'm not trying to hold this project up. I know that it's delayed and I know we want to get it moving and I'm all for that. I just also want to make sure that what we get is appropriate for the town. So if moving forward with the site plan keeps you guys going and moving, I have zero interest in that. I still only 1 vote. But as far as the ECO, I cannot get behind these 2 buildings.
With the ECO guidelines, I thought commercial buildings couldn't have vinyl siding. Thought that was part of our guideline, that it had to be hardy plank, brick, stone, something else, but I didn't think we were allowed vinyl siding.
Huh? You want to do it? Huh? You want me to do it or you want to do it? I can address the hardy plank issue, if you would like. Hardy plank is a cement board, and it looks like vinyl siding from a distance, but it's a cement product. If you look at your sidewalks, every 10 or 15 feet on the sidewalk, what do you have? You have a piece of wood or a caulked expansion joint, because the sidewalk, when it gets hot or cold, expands and contracts, and that's to prevent the sidewalk from cracking. Hardy plank has gotten to have some problems. When they built buildings out of IFAS, they found out that the IFAS expanded and contracted, and if you didn't take care of it right, you had water leaking behind it, and you couldn't get out, and it rotted the buildings out. They've had problems now with hardy plank. When hardy plank comes together, when you butt hardy plank, not in the corners, but when you butt pieces of hardy plank together, you caulk it. If that caulk joint is not maintained, it leaks. And it has become a very big problem on builders that are using hardy plank. We use hardy plank on a lot of houses, and a lot of houses have issues now about the caulking on hardy plank. We are not using hardy plank. We are using vinyl siding. Vinyl siding overlaps, and vinyl siding has J-channels. It doesn't leak. We've built hundreds of houses with vinyl siding, and it works just fine. People think that it's a low-grade product. We just completed 2 houses in Virginia Beach for $5 million, and they're vinyl siding. They're not flat vinyl siding. That you can get vinyl siding in all different shapes now, but they're vinyl siding, and they're $4.9 million. So it's not an inexpensive product. It does its job, and the point is it doesn't leak. We're building the DMV, and we're responsible for the exterior of the building for 10 years. So that product can't leak. With leaks, we have to fix it at our expense. We're not putting hardy plank on the building. Hardy plank leaks.
The commissioner asked a question, and I would love some clarification of that, because we wouldn't have showed up with vinyl siding if there was a quarter overlay.
We've discussed it in the
requirement
past with
against.
other projects, and it was mentioned at those meetings or those other things, that vinyl siding was not part of our ECO guidelines.
It's not in the historic district, I know, and I think our ECO mimics the historic district. Ms. Clary?
The ECO guidelines suggest avoiding the use of aluminum or vinyl siding.
So it suggests avoiding,
Suggest
but we could allow.
Correct.
Okay.
But as Mr. Pack said, we prefer brick.
We do.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
We prefer brick.
I understand. We didn't want to build an all-brick building because you can end up with a bunker. It's a very low building with no architectural ability to have any architectural look if you have a little short bunker there sitting on the side of the road. So we try to give it some pizzazz. I mean, we try to put some stuff into it. We try to design a roof with some pizzazz. We try to design different colors into it. So if you have a brick building, you got a brick building. We understand that's not what we wanted. It's not what DMV wanted.
I mean, Wendy's managed to do a good job. so
Fantastic.
I think it can be done.
So did McDonald's.
Yeah.
I need a bigger overview of this. I hope I'm not out of line. Attorney Pope, if I am, please tell me. Is DMV leasing the property from you?
Yes, correct,
Are you in a long-term lease?
correct.
My concern is if DMV pulls out, what happens to the building? What happens to the motorcycle path behind it? If you go over to Patrick Henry Mall, they often lease out space on their parking lot to do motorcycle drills. I'm assuming DMV, being a state organization, is not going to allow somebody to lease out their property to do test and training and teaching me how to use a motorcycle. I guess I want to make sure when DMV is not here 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now, that motorcycle pad's not going to be used for private motorcycle instructions and things of that nature.
I don't think the zoning would allow that. They would have to get different zoning to teach motorcycle or automobile or something like that, automobile repair. And what we would do is if DMV went away, we would take the pad out and either make it grass or make it into the parking lot, whatever the city planning department would allow us to do. But we have no intention of putting auto repair or auto training or anything like that in there. It's a long-term lease with DMV, and we don't expect them to be going anywhere for 10 or 20 years. So-
What you're saying is exactly right about renting the space at Patrick Henry Mall or wherever else. I took that motorcycle class at the TCC campus in Chesapeake, and they need a huge space. If you have 8 or 10 or 12 or more students, you want a big parking lot that is going to be an empty parking lot. You really can't do something like that in a 50 by 120 space of this pad. It is a very specific use for this asphalt pad. I certainly am
And I
sensitive
get it
to
for
your
the
concern.
DMV, I just want to make sure for the residents that may be there in the future, they're not listening to this 10, 20 years down the road either.
Oh, I agree.
Absolutely.
The other issue with the plan for me is you've got a restaurant / retail business. If there is no current tenant, looking at the way this is done on the site plan, it looks like we're approving a 3-unit strip mall.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
3 units.
On the restaurant / retail building, if there isn't a restaurant that comes to that location, if this building ultimately gets approved, we are now approving a 3-unit strip mall there. And is that what we want there without a specific tenant? Because if we go ahead and approve as it is, you now have a 1,200, 4,800, and a 1,200 square foot 3-space retail business that may be nails, hair, whatever it might be. So that's the issue I have there, is what's really going to be in that building long-term for that. I've said this many times, Jack hates me for this. We're a colonial community. We favor, at least my personal opinion, in colonial architecture. This building is not colonial to me. It's a colonial shape, but it does not carry the characteristics of the county. These buildings are modern and do not fit within the town. At least does not fit with my opinion of what's going on with the town when you look at the buildings and the structures that are around it. Whether it's vinyl, or whether it's hardy plank, or whether it's brick, it's not in keeping with the flavor of colonial architecture, and these just don't fit with my opinion on that. My last comment is on the dumpster site. It looks like that you're going to make it with 3 walls of Trex or composite vinyl. We've approved many dumpster sites and looked at them and redos. To me, they got to have 3 masonry walls with the gate, because these trucks just beat them to death. And if they, push the dumpster too far back, bend poles, crush them, move them, what's the maintenance plan? They also have awnings on here. Do we have any ordinances on when do awnings need to be replaced? There are some awnings around town in the historic area. They get weathered, they get faded. Who's in regulation of when these awnings need to be replaced if they're cloth and they're of the sunbrella material? What are we looking at with long-term of those? If you at least provide metal awnings and stuff like that, they seem to weather long-term, but what happens 10 years down the road? Who's going to say these awnings need to be replaced other than the merchant? So that's the other issue on the site plan for me. I'm assuming all of the stormwater management's been worked out with the villas. There was at least 100 pages of reading on that, but I'm assuming this site is grandfathered in on the BMP. All of the site stuff is all geared and everything's ready to go, and that BMP can handle this site plus the residential site already. So I'm assuming that's all taken care of, because there was a lot of reference about 66% on parcel A and this, that, and the other in there. So I want to make sure the stormwater and the villas are taken care of and their contract is straight on who's providing maintenance to the BMP and that that's all taken care of on their behalf, because that's been a concern with the residential side of this. And then, if this goes back to the sign, and I know you're not there yet, but if there's going to be one owner with multiple leases, to me, I would favor a combined sign, because if the DMV does pull out, it would make more sense to me to have a single sign with multiple things to it, as opposed to separate signs in front of each building, as they have, I don't know what you call it, but a monument sign, like it's in front of the shopping centers where there's multiple signs on one sign. So that's the way I would prefer to see this if you're talking about signage in the future.
Any signage would have to be okay by the planning department, and we would do whatever their requirements are with the sign. In regards to the dumpster enclosure, the dumpster enclosure was designed not to be another little brick or block building. We try to make it the same type of product that the DMV was, and it's a Trek deck material. You mentioned that if the dumpster hits the Trek deck, it'll break. The way we build the dumpster enclosures is, if you open the doors to the dumpster enclosures, there's steel bollards around the inside of the dumpster enclosure. So if the dumpster guy messes up and tries to put the dumpster against the side of the Trek deck, he'll hit an 8-inch concrete bollard that goes all the way around the inside of the enclosure. So him hitting the thing is just about impossible unless he rams it through with the truck. So that's how we designed the dumpster enclosure, to prevent exactly what you were questioning about. And that's how it's going to be done. The outside gates are metal with the Trek deck over top of them. Again, we tried to design something that was architectural pleasing. We asked 6 different times if we need to change the architectural thing. Nobody ever came back to us and said, it doesn't meet any requirements. We said, do we need to do anything else? Nobody ever said that we need to do anything else. 6 separate times did we ask about the architectural drawings, 6 times, in 6 different submissions. And nobody ever said, it doesn't meet this, it doesn't meet that, maybe you can consider this, maybe you can consider that. And now we're coming to the 11th minute. It's been 2 years now. And now we're coming to the 11th minute. We thought we paid for people to design a project that we thought was architecturally pleasing, that gave it some pizzazz, that gave it a little bit of zip. It doesn't look like a little bunker, ammunition bunker from the Navy. It looks like a house. And that's what we were trying to do, make that one look like a house, make the other one look a little bit more modern, to give it a little bit of pizzazz. It doesn't have the height of the Rural Farms and the Dollar General, so if you build it at brick, it's a much lower building. It's not going to look pleasing from the road. It's just not. And so we thought we were doing the right thing. We submitted 6 plans to do the right thing. And now somebody says, well, I think you should do something different.
Yeah, but I don't think the town staff is looking at this from an aesthetic standpoint. That's our job.
Well,
They're looking at it from a technical
I
standpoint.
understand your comment.
And taken into the ECO ordinance as well.
Well, we asked the town staff 6 times, does it meet the architectural wants of the town staff? Never got to apply to any different. Never. Okay? So here we are. Now,
And as Councilman Pack stated earlier, I don't recall seeing these buildings before. This is my first time seeing them. So,
we tried to do the right thing. It's what I'm saying to you. We did everything to try to do the right thing. We tried to do an architecturally pleasing product. We tried to do something right. Okay? If you say you want this building to be all brick, then we got to go back to the DMV and say to the DMV, we got to change your lease because the building is going to cost X dollars more. And I can tell you right now, the way the DMV feels about the delays on this, that's not going to happen, guys. They're not going to pay 1 extra nickel to change 1 extra thing. They're not. They've sort of said to me, let us know what happens, because if this doesn't happen, we're going to move someplace. But it doesn't look like we're going to move here. It's not a threat. We tried to do everything we could, everything, to make sure all of the things that we submitted were correct. We asked. You want us to change something? When we had the ability to change it with DMV, we asked. VDOT, we went to VDOT. VDOT says you got to go down the street and fix this thing for rural farms. What has it got to do with us? Rural Farms said they were going to do it because we want you to do it. Well, we're going to do that. We're going down the street and we're fixing in front of rural farms. The town came to us and said, we want you to redesign the entire site to get flow-through traffic so the people in the back and Dollar General can enter and exit for your property. We redesigned the entire site plan. The town came to us and said, we want you to obtain easements from all the surrounding parcels so people can drive through to go out to Battery Park Road. We did that. $40,000 it cost us to do that because the town asked us to do it. Now we're at the point of no return with the DMV. Okay, they've approved the plan. We thought after 6 submissions, the town approved the plan. They're going to go someplace else. I'm just telling you like it is.
Well, sir, this is the first time that we've seen anything like Randy has said, but yet you want us to vote on this tonight and shove it down our throats?
I'm not-
Wait a minute. But yet you've had time to look at it. This is our first time looking at it. Don't we deserve the same time? Because this is a building that's going to be there forever and ever and ever.
I'm definitely not trying to run it down your throats. We submitted 6 different times.
But
to
you've
the
never
staff.
submitted, wait a minute, time out. You've
But-
never submitted one to this group.
But my question is, when I submitted to the staff. and
You've
I
never
asked-
submitted one to this group.
I understand. When I submitted to the staff and I asked the staff, do you have any architectural comments? And no comments come back. What am I supposed to assume?
Mr. Chair, I recommend that we table this.
Dr. Sachs, I understand your predicament, and there are some things here that's okay. The site plan, these easements and everything, we don't particularly have any issue with that. Again, the issue is the design of that building. Councilman Pack, how do you feel about the design of the restaurant as opposed to the DMV building? You see anything acceptable there?
Well,
When you look at the restaurant building alone?
yeah, I do not believe it meets the architecture of our community as our comprehensive plan has laid out.
The
of what we
restaurant
want to
building
see.
itself?
Correct.
You have issues with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and we understand the DMV, there's issues with that.
Dr. Sachs, I think you've done a great job designing some lovely buildings, but they just don't fit in with the look that we're going for in our community. As you said, it's designed to look like Virginia Beach. And I've seen the design for that restaurant and retail space in Virginia Beach, as is the DMV building. It looks like you've taken a small strip from Virginia Beach and plopped it down here. And it is lovely, but I don't think it meets what we're trying to achieve in our entrance corridor in Smithfield, but it is a lovely design. I just don't think it's what we're looking for at this time.
Let me ask you this, because this community would like to see a DMV here. They absolutely
happen.
would, okay?
I'm just telling you the truth.
Okay, well, hold on for a second. Would a site plan approval allow you to continue to move forward with these guys with the understanding that the buildings that we brought and the ECO would not be voted on? We can table the ECO and bring back different designs.
What you don't understand is you're asking us to have architects redesign the building, come up with different products, which runs the cost up, okay?
Mr.
And-
Sachs understands better than anybody in this group.
Right, so if you run the cost up, you know, when we started this project, the project was based on interest rates at 3%. That's our problem now. It's at 7%. The cost of materials has gone up 20%. That's our problem. And now you're saying you want us to use more expensive products, and DMV says, we sort of had it. We waited 2 years, and the people in Smithfield are screaming at their representatives, where is the DMV office? And we say, we've submitted all the plans, we've done everything we've asked for, And yes, you didn't get to look at the plans before, but we asked everybody that we knew to ask to look at the plans and tell us if you didn't like the architecture. And now you say we didn't get to look at it. And it seems to be my fault that you didn't get to look at it. But 6 submissions were made, and 6 times we asked, are these architectural plans good? We could have done something at that time. We could have negotiated with the DMV. We could have said they want more brick. It'll raise your rent. But now they said, we've had it. We've been at this for 2 years trying to get this office open, and we've had it. We're just at the end. We're at the end.
So
if
for
the
those
site plan is
reasons-
approved, and you're going to force us to go back to DMV, and we're going to say to them, we have to raise your rent, they're going to tell me in very plain language to take a hike, that they'll go someplace else. I'm just telling you like they told me.
So for those reasons, we should accept a product that's going to sit in our community for eternity that we're not happy with.
No, I didn't say
Well,
that.
that's what you're suggesting.
I said was, now it's my fault that you didn't get the opportunity to look at the project when there were 6 submissions. And now you're getting to look at it and say to me, go back and do something else?
Could I ask
6 times we submitted.
Can I ask
6
a question
times.
of Ms. Clary? Was there a pre-application meeting, as we often have on different projects, with a couple of members of the Planning Commission prior to one of these submittals?
There was not. This was the original elevations that were submitted, which is why it still includes the elevations for the drive-through facility. We had notified the applicants from the very beginning. We were bringing the application package as a whole as we accumulated all of the information needed for the site plan, the materials, the ECO review as well.
When we first designed this project, it had no rear entrance to allow people to go to Battery Park. We didn't want it to be a through entrance to Battery Park. The town did. We think that's a big detriment to this project, but something that the town wanted. But we think that we're going to have people cutting through. We're going to have people cutting through the site from Dollar General. We had to get cross easements from all these people to satisfy the town. That's not something we wanted. When we first designed the project, we didn't want the entrance where it was. We wanted it moved over more towards the restaurant side. The town said, no, we want you to line it up with the street. It's not where we wanted it, not the best place for the design of this particular site. But we did it because the town wanted it. We're stuck with that. We're stuck with the rear entrance. All those things cost a lot of money for us to do. And it's not like we didn't want to do something different on the design. We would have done something different on the design. But now at the 11th hour, 2 years down the road, you say, well, we don't like the design. It probably looks too beachy.
May I?
You know, to be honest with you, I don't think it's fair. It's
I-
not like you didn't know what the architectural looked like. If there's not good communication between the planning department and the staff, now it's my issue. I tried to do the right thing. I tried to make it work. I tried to accommodate every single thing the town said. Every time they came back with something new, we tried to work it out. The staff was great. We worked out the fire hydrants. We worked out, we did a traffic information study. We had a traffic information study. We flipped the site. You know, the DMV was on the other side. And the town and DMV said, well, if we do that, then the employees have to walk across the walkway. We flipped the site and redid the entire engineering to move the DMV to the right-hand side because everybody wanted it. Every time we turn around, somebody else is asking us to do something that costs us a fortune, and it's not like we're not trying. But yeah, if you can get the DMV to cough up the difference in the stuff, we'll change the architect. But I'm telling you, the state has come to me, the state real estate people, and the DMV has said, we've had it, guys. 2 years down the road, people are screaming at us, the legislator is screaming at us, you can't make this thing work in Smithfield, we'll go somewhere else. I'm a big boy. I'm going to lose $150,000 because I've got material out on the job, I've got structural steel, I've got trusses out on the job, we can start right away. What do you want me to do? It's not my fault. The only way I can describe it, I think it's unfortunate that the Planning Commission doesn't see the architectural drawings when they're first submitted. So if the Planning Commission has a statement that any kind of developer can come forward and say, you told me what to do and I did it. I can tell you for a fact when Mamoutis met for the project in the back, they had the architects come out and they met and they submitted their drawings, and somebody architecturally said, you need to change it and you need to add this and this and this, and they did. And that's why they came up with those buildings. Nobody said that to us. We were there 6 times. Nobody said that they wanted to add foo-foo, or they wanted to add this, or they wanted to add that. Where was everybody? We were there.
May I interject, please?
Commissioners, remember, with streaming, people at home want to hear, so speak clearly. Okay, and loudly into the mic, please.
I think, in my opinion, what I'm hearing here from the Planning Commission, we're not asking you to redesign your building. I don't have a problem with door and window placements when I look at the elevation. What we have a problem with is the veneer. I don't know, I can't give you the price of brick or something like that. It's the outer veneer that we have an issue with, and replacing one veneer with another veneer is what we're asking, or at least what we think we're asking. We're asking for a swap of materials because the way that this is done looks modern and beachy and not colonial. We're not asking to redesign. We're not asking you to move windows. We're not asking to get rid of the rear entry. We're not asking any of those things. I'm speaking for myself, but I'm assuming that that's what we're discussing. All we're asking for is a change in veneer.
The change in the veneer has a significant change in the cost, okay? And nobody is saying, the only person is saying is just let the developer absorb the cost, okay? Let the developer change it, because that's what we want to do. We want to change the veneer of the building. If we put brick on the building, it's probably $30,000, $40,000 a building to change it to brick, $80,000 for the 2
The
buildings.
split face brick is probably not much difference in cost. You're saving it on vinyl for certain.
It's a lot of difference. So I'm just telling you, it's a lot of difference in cost.
Okay.
The town doesn't want to pay it. The town doesn't want to pay for the pork chop up the street, $20,000. We're going to pay for that.
One other question.
And that's Rural Farms' problem, not ours. But VDOT said, we want you to do it. Do it. So we're doing it.
With all of this, is there not a public hearing on this? Ultimately, doesn't the public get to speak on this and on that like they do other projects to come in?
This is not, the rezoning happened back.
The first time.
The first time. when
But
they
I
had-
get that, that was the rezoning and for the special use, but we didn't have any cosmetic details or anything. Does the public not get a chance to speak on what they would like to see in the community and not just our 8 opinions?
So we don't have a public hearing scheduled, but they would be allowed to come before Planning Commission during the comment section to comment on any items that they wish to comment on.
Because, I mean, this is a community building, this is not a planning commission, town council building, and again, we're not upset with the site plan, we're not upset with the concept of what you're doing. Our appearance is not in keeping with the spirit of the town.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to separate the votes this evening, and I would move that the site plan, as presented, is approved with the stipulations that the town staff has placed on it.
Second.
I didn't understand what you said, that the town staff has to do what?
There are requirements in the town in the recommendation from town staff, and my motion is that we approve the site plan with the recommendations from town staff.
Just the site plan.
What?
Just that he's talking about just the site plan.
You're going to approve the site plan, and then what?
My motion is to separate the site plan and the ECO approval, and my motion is to recommend approval of the site plan as presented with the staff recommendations.
Why does that leave us with a vote?
Let them do that.
Okay.
Well, Councilman.
Yes, sir.
how would that address the architectural? How, when
Well,
will we address
we're
that?
going to do that with the ECO,
Which is
which
when?
would be a second motion. After this motion is vetted, my intention is to put a second motion for the ECO. And that, the ECOs will address the architectural.
The second motion, would that be something that we would consider tonight? Or would that be something that would be moved to another meeting?
Well, I'm going to make it tonight, Mr. Chairman, so if we decide to consider it, we certainly can. It depends on whether I get a second or not.
Mr. Chairman, you have a motion and a second on the floor.
Yes.
Yes. We have a motion and a second to approve the site plan as presented, including conditions given by town staff. Is there any further discussion?
For clarification, did you want to amend the motion to request a monument-style sign as opposed to the two detached signs?
And I'm not ready to add that because they're not at that stage in their own development plan. I'm just offering my opinion of what I would like to see.
Thank you.
Mr. Swecker?
No, I'm okay with the motion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Mr. Swecker?
Yes?
Dr. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Pack?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Yoko?
Yes.
Mr. Davison?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hilligas?
Yes.
And Chairman Bryan?
Yes.
Thank you.
The site plan application approved. Now, to address,
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I am making the motion that we deny the ECO as presented.
Second.
Do we want to ask for a continuance?
and
Is it appropriate for us to ask for a continuance?
At this point, there's a motion and a second on the
I
table.
apologize.
No worries.
the conditions of this ECO, we'd like to be clear on that.
I'm sorry, what was the question, Mr. Bryan?
The conditions on the ECO,
The motion is to deny.
To deny the ECO.
application.
it is to deny it. So the conditions by town staff would not apply at this point.
Correct.
We have a motion and a second to deny the ECO application as presented.
I
Call
want
for
to
the
make
vote.
sure we understand this correct. What we just approved is not going to stop him from going on, but if we got to decide the structure of the buildings is not going to be in the way right now, correct?
So by approving the site plan tonight, we are approving the site plan, the physical locations of the parking
Layout.
spots, the curbs, the entrance, the exit, the traffic plan, and the locations and size of the buildings, okay?
Do the prep work.
So your ground, everything on the ground. By denying the ECO, what we would be denying is the appearance of the buildings.
All right. So he can't go back to the DMV and say, hey, work is going. They're starting on the project, correct?
I would hope so, yes, sir.
He could start the site plan potentially after he gets approved from the town council and the permitting and all of that's required.
Yeah, I mean,
But
he
he
can
can't
turn
start
dirt.
construction of the building as of yet.
But he could go back to them and say, yes, I'm moving
We have
forward.
progress, yes.
Okay.
That was my intention, is to not stop this, is to allow him to move forward while we work out the architectural piece.
Is that fair enough, sir?
No, we got a motion, so we
Yes,
just need to move
yes.
forward to vote.
Yes. One other point here.
Can I ask a question?
Not at this point.
One other point. The applicants, as part of their planning, why wouldn't they look at the zoning ordinance? Is there anything that would prompt them to do that?
Well, I
Or
assume
is
they
that-
did look at the zoning ordinance and probably pretty, I mean, what do you mean by the zoning ordinance?
The applicants were provided with notified and informed that they were building and constructing within the entrance corridor and that there were guidelines that they needed to follow.
They were?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you. We have a motion to deny this ECO application as presented, and a second. Call for the vote.
Dr. Pope?
Yes, I vote that we deny it.
Mr. Swecker?
No.
That's a no vote not to deny it.
Not to accept it.
Not to accept it.
Okay, let's clarify this.
Yeah,
Yes.
Let's clarify this.
The motion on the floor is that we deny what is presented to us.
I said no.
That means you're accepting what they presented.
Tonight, I am.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't, your vote? I didn't understand your vote.
Okay, I'm voting to accept what they have presented tonight.
Mr. Yoko?
Yes,
You're voting to deny.
I am voting to deny.
Mr. Davidson?
No.
Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Pack?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hillegas?
Yes.
And Chairman Bryan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion to deny has been approved. Thank you, Dr. Sachs.
Can I ask a question
Mr. Martin?
now? Can I ask a question now?
No, sir. No, sir.
Yes, no?
No, he said
No, sir, it's out of order.
DMV's gonna go away.
The next item on our agenda tonight is number 10. We've covered everything else, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Number 10. That is a discussion item, Smithfield zoning ordinance, Article 5.I.5, text amendment. Town of Smithfield is the applicant. Could we have the report, please, Dr. Clary?
Yes, thank you, sir. Town staff is suggesting a text amendment to Article 5I5 of the Smithfield zoning ordinance. This section currently reads that no amendment shall be made to any accepted proffer except in the manner of a new rezoning application as set forth herein. This language is contradictory to Virginia code, which allows amendments to proffered conditions where such amendment does not affect conditions of use or density. A local governing body may waive the requirement for a public hearing. Town staff is proposing the following language. There shall be no amendment or variation of any conditions proffered pursuant to Article 5 until after a public hearing before the governing body. However, where an amendment to such proffered conditions is requested and where such amendment does not affect condition of use or density, a local governing body may waive the requirement for a public hearing by a majority vote at the next regularly scheduled town council meeting. This application item appeared on the Planning Commission agenda as a public hearing item on February 14th, 2023. A different version was favorably recommended to Town Council. At the March 7th Town Council meeting, this item was sent back to Planning Commission with updated language for review and recommendation. Since the drafting of what appeared in front of Town Council, I myself have met with Attorney Riddick, and we did strike that and new rezoning application from the proposed language in order to just be a little more precise and clear in our language. Town staff do recommend a robust discussion and a favorable recommendation on consensus language to Town Council. Thank you.
Director Clary, we had a robust discussion on this at the last meeting. And from what I'm seeing here, is the only change is the removal of that statement, the first statement? Is that what I understand?
Yes, so when Planning Commission did send this to Town Council, we did include that additional sentence at the end that says, by majority vote at the next regularly scheduled Town Council meeting. This did go to Town Council, and Town Council made the recommendation of removing the first stricken part of Section 5. And then we have also since removed and new rezoning application. This is in order to provide clarity that it would just be a required public hearing for this amendment to the proffers, and if it does not affect use, conditions of use or density, then Town Council has the ability to waive this required public hearing by a majority vote at its next regularly scheduled Town Council meeting.
So that statement, beginning number 5, that is the only change since the last meeting.
The two red line are, the two strike-throughs in this are the change, is the change, whatever the correct pronunciation is.
Yes.
Are the changes.
Okay. Commission discussion?
Mr. Brown, we had pretty robust discussion at the council level as well. And I was not at the last meeting, and I wanted to be before this was approved. Mr. Torrey has provided council and planning commission with some very helpful information on this, and he does not do so in an adversarial way. I would recommend that we read this and look at this. His intention, I believe, is right in line with ours. And I've had some discussion with him. He actually sent me a separate letter as well. The idea here is to make sure that, if we need to fix a mistake, we can do so pretty easily, and we know the example that needs to be corrected. But we want to make sure that we cannot change anything after the fact, or not us, but future councils and future commissions, without properly vetting that with a public hearing. And so that's what this clarification was. The council felt that this was such an important issue, and that the Planning Commission had as much to do with it as anybody else. So they wanted the Planning Commission to review it one more time before they made a change that the Planning Commission had not recommended. So what they're asking, and the Town Council is asking, is that the adjustments made here are favorably recommended for council for acceptance at their next meeting. Does that make sense?
Yes. Any additional comments?
Just regarding this item number 10, the proposed language change is exactly copying the language from Code Section 15.2-2302 subsection B. So it is changing the town's policy to be in confrontation with the Code of Virginia in its current state. The language is word for word.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we make a favorable recommendation for Town Council.
We have a motion to recommend this application to Town Council as presented, and a second. Any further discussion? None? Call for the vote.
Mr. Davison?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Pack?
Yes.
Dr. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Swecker?
Yes.
Mr. Yoko?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hilligas?
Yes.
And Chairman Bryan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Application passed. And the last item on our agenda tonight is approval of February minutes.
Mr. Riddick had marked up some changes to be made to the minutes, and forgive me for not knowing whether these just get submitted like that or if somebody will revise them, but he had suggested, there are a few typos and corrections, they're not anything but edits. There's no, in large part, there are not many corrections to be made, but they're marked on here. So however is the proper procedure to do that, I will submit them.
I would move that we accept the minutes as corrected by Attorney Riddick.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, minutes have been approved.
All right, can I ask a question concerning the DMV?
Yeah, yes, sir.
All right, what does the developer got to do to get the basics he's got to do before he can come back before us with an appeal? Can he do that?
I think Dr. Pope said it best. We'd like to see a facade change on the building so they match the historic architecture of our community. And I mean, I didn't have any problem with the landscaping, I didn't have any problem with anything on there, just the way the buildings appeared. He did not appear to be willing to change them.
Right, I'm saying if, because I don't know, you don't know, if he's presented it to the town for 6 times, then the town they've already accepted it. And there's 8 of us sitting in here. Wouldn't we be better off they had a public hearing on this? Let the public come in and say, hey, look, we like it, we don't like it, this is
Mr. Schwartz,
something else?
I believe there's a lot more to this story
Oh,
than,
okay.
than we know. I don't believe that getting down to 2 years at the end of it and us saying we don't like the way it looks, is exactly how this happened.
Here's how I see our role as the planning commission. We have professionals in place that work for the town that are very in tune with the technical aspects of all the engineering and all of the requirements and parking and square footage and landscaping. They are not interested in aesthetics. That is our job, is to look at aesthetics. Just like tonight for me, I can't tell you that 16-inch water main is going to produce enough pressure to give plenty of pressure to the rest of the town. I trust that Mr. Reed and them have done their jobs. I can't comment on that, but that pipe looks pretty under the ground. So I'm interested in aesthetics and how things look, and that's not the town's focus. That's our focus. And it's I guess it's upsetting to Dr. Sachs that he didn't get a chance to get aesthetics changes somewhere in his process. But with that being said, Mr. Sachs has every right to go to town council with one favorable recommendation and one unfavorable recommendation and seek his approval through the town council with or without our recommendation on the ECO. It's well within his right to go ahead and proceed to the town council without our recommendation, and he has that right. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so he needs to be made aware of that. It didn't sound like that he understood that he could still go before the town council as the way it was ended this evening. So I just want to make sure he's aware of that, because it is up to ultimately to the town council to decide which way they wish to go. I just want to make sure they are aware of that.
The applicants will be provided with an action letter indicating any next steps required for their applications.
Good.
But they do have access to the zoning ordinance and the ECO.
Yes, sir.
And the comp plan.
Ms. Clary, do we no longer do pre-application meetings with a couple of commission members just to bounce, we used to do that a
Yes,
long
we did.
time ago, to bounce ideas up and kind of say, that's not gonna fly and this is what, this is how planning commission leans on this issue or the look of this or, that sort of thing. We used to do that. Do we not do those anymore?
So we still do with our applicants, especially with larger subdivisions. I recently sent out some, not recently, a couple months ago, I sent out some elevations for review and comment on a proposed development for a new subdivision. So we still do. Again, with this particular application, we informed the applicants we were bringing it, and we were in the process of gathering all of the information that would be required for an entrance corridor overlay review and the site plan review.
There's a lot of people within the community, they're all talking about, when's the DMV coming? When's the DMV coming?
Yeah.
So, like you said, we need to go back, somebody needs to go back to Dr. Sachs and say, hey, look, you can't go on to town council with it, they'll make the ultimate decision. But, again, there's too many people in this town that's asking. They're getting tired of going to Suffolk, Newport News. So we need to make sure.
I'm not going to give them a Connex box DMV.
No,
It doesn't fit in.
No.
Aesthetically, it's just, it was a cookie cutter.
Not gonna have a Connex box, do you?
I want a DMV as much as the next guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I really do. And I know our constituents want it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to approve one tonight that didn't look appropriate just to get it approved.
And we just emphasized that with the change that we did, covering the issue that we had with the school, the west side, that portable building that they want to put there. And we updated the ECL. I mean, that's,
I mean, literally, there's a strip mall in Virginia Beach at Nemo and General Booth that looks exactly like the retail restaurant place
There's probably several of
that
them.
he's, looks exactly like that. Only his is smaller.
and you would prefer that it looks more in line with, well, the Dollar General, I can see that. It has the brick exterior. Royal Farms, I'm not so certain, and True Value, that's on the other side. I'm not so certain that they
Royal
do.
Farms has a brick exterior. I looked at it on my phone before I
They
made the
do.
comment. Royal Farms and DG both have.
True Value.
True Value is not.
On the new one, but not on the
Yeah,
old stuff.
yeah. Yeah,
Good.
And the elevation, you mentioned it. I have a problem with the elevation as well. I thought that, yeah, that just looks so out of place considering what we're trying to do with ECL.
That's what our job is.
Yes. Okay.
Move for adjournment.
No further comments? We are adjourned.